The Yfactor.
On the line, I have Abdulah Zaayid, who is a humanitarian activist that spent 4 weeks on Xmas Island Detention Centre. Welcome, Abdullah, to the show.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Tasnim, and just got to say congratulations on the program. I've been listening in, and I think you're all doing a great job, and keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. Well, you were doing a great job last year this time in Xmas Islands. Can you tell us some information about that?
Yeah, it was a pretty interesting experience. Not every day that people do this sort of stuff, but I decided to put my hand up and spend 4 weeks on Xmas Island as a volunteer in the detention centres. So we're doing a lot of social, recreational activities, things like teaching English, sports programs, cooking classes, yoga, you name it, movie nights, bingo, dance nights, everything like that. And it was across both the family sites with the minors and the children, and as well as the adult men.
Oh, okay. Abdullah, what was the ambience like there? Like, how did it feel being in a detention centre?
It was a bit surreal because the island itself, Xmas Island, is something out of Jurassic Park. It's formed from volcanic eruptions under the ocean, and it's got no land animals apart from crabs and birds. So you've got these flying, like pterodactyl birds everywhere. So you get the impression it's very Jurassic-like. And then you've got this amazing situation of two rather large detention centres in the most obscure place on the planet. So it's a bit isolated in terms of communication. We're behind, I think, Perth by about an hour, and we get the weekly paper, and we're there, I think, a week after as well. So
wow, so it felt like a hellhole?
Not quite like a hellhole. It just felt like we were in a bubble.
Wow.
Beyond the realms of the rest of the world. And if a nuke had dropped somewhere in the world, we wouldn't have had a clue, and we must probably be like the last survivors or something. There's just no connection to anything. So it's very out there. But it was
Now, more about the actual conditions within the centre. What did you witness in terms of the interaction between the detainees and the guards, and basically, what was going on in the detention centre? Like, what did people do in that detention centre?
Yeah. Well, just to put it out there are two different sites. There's one where it has families, minors, and I guess the children in the families are there as well. And that's technically not classed as a detention centre because of legal reasons, but it's pretty much just got like a pool fence around a bunch of demountables, and it's quite congested. There's a lot of people. Families have rooms, that sort of stuff. There are some activities that go on, and predominantly all were run by volunteers, the organisation I was with, and there'd be things like, daily English classes, a bit of sport in the afternoon, but things would change all the time. So if there was a new boat arriving, if there was perhaps an issue with somebody who'd self-harmed or something like that, things would shut down quickly, or if there was concerns in the community about, kids at the park.
So they're basically in limbo, awaiting the decision to be made, and they just get engaged in these random activities every now and then to keep them going. Is that right?
Yeah, so there was some regularity towards programming, but things could be thrown up in the air at any time. But on the flip side of that, the men's centre, which holds in excess of 2,000 persons, which is literally across the other side of the island, isolated from everything. There's a dirt road that just gets you out there. Is pretty much like Supermax sort of prison. It's just got electric fences everywhere, and concrete blocks and towers everywhere, and there's a bit of formality over there. There are set times for everything, head counts, that sort of stuff. There is some interaction with the guards, and I've got to say, some of the guards, treat the detainees with a lot of respect, but I guess it seems to be some of them are lacking a bit of training, because a lot of the times there are, issues with, just basic common sense and interactions, and there'd be some, I guess, minor issues every now and then.
Did you feel that they were being treated more as like criminals rather than, people that are kind of, innocent till proven guilty kind of thing? Or was there like a hostile attitude towards them?
I think, across the spectrum of, the interaction with us volunteers and, people who are working in there, whether it be caterers or the guards or service people fixing things, it's quite similar to the spectrum across the Australian public at the moment with the debate. Some people, seem to be quite ignorant of, who these people are and why they're here, and treat them, I guess, on that level, whereas others were, quite open, casual, and just, going about their job, not too fussed. And some others really put an effort into making their days a bit more enjoyable, not only for their sake, but for the sake of the people they're working with. So,
well, speaking of public opinion, recently there has been, the uproar about the asylum seekers and, policy changes and things like that. having first-hand experience in the asylum seeker, what are your views on this issue?
I think every time I hear about the debates that are going on, I get not upset or sad. It's just to, sort of stand back and think, are people looking at this with the right perspective? Because we've got to remember, these people aren't convicted criminals. They're not, they're not in these detention centres, which I personally think they shouldn't be there for committing any crimes. Although the perception, I think, we tend to get is we've got these mad, riotous, criminals who are coming to, pillage Australia, so we shouldn't let them in. And
that's right.
Adding to that perspective is the fact that people who arrive on boats account for, I think, 10 to 15% of our illegal immigration problem. The other 80+% arrive on aeroplanes. So just to keep things, in perspective.
It's a boat stigma, I guess.
Yeah, there's a lot of stigma attached to it, and unfortunately, I think it's become a political football. And I'm not sure from your experiences yourself and Miran at Villawood, you would have seen a lot of the detainees are quite aware they're sort of stuck in between a bit of a political football.
Definitely. Abdulah, I know some of our audience might be interested in actually visiting these detention centres, whether it be Villawood or others. Is there a procedure to go about doing this?
Unfortunately, the organisation I was took part of the volunteer program ceases to be able to conduct any programs on site on any detention centre. They were the only organisation who had permission to do that, but at the moment, Serco, the organisation running all the detention centres, has their own activities and programs, and they're streamed through that. But as a general person to visit, anyone can visit a detention centre in Australia. Obviously, you've got to have some sort of contact or know people there that you want to visit, but any Australian, I think even New Zealand citizens can visit any detention centre, I think just about any day of the week. And there are procedures for that, I think, on the immigration website where you can get information.
Okay, Abdulah, so any departing comments in terms of what this issue might actually involve on a human aspect for these detainees?
Well, it would be great to see, I think, more discussion or more thought applied to the effect this has on a lot of people. And I think something we don't hear much about is the psychological effect it has on a lot of detainees, whether or not they're legitimate, refugees or asylum seekers. I think we've got to identify that there's a lot of self-harm that happens across many of the sites. There's been, I think, in excess of, about 10 suicides in the last 18 months, and there's been numerous self-harm attempts, whether it be, wrist slashing and that sort of stuff. So we've got to remember that these are real people. There are real families attached to these persons. Whether or not their decisions, are legal or legitimate, or we accept them in terms of how they arrive in Australia, we've got to treat them with dignity and respect. And it's not good enough, I think, to just say, well, at least they're getting fed and looked after. As Australians, we should set the highest standards, and it doesn't really matter who you are or where you're from, I think. So just a bit more humanity, I think, is
definitely. I think that's what's missing in the debate at the moment, and we do hope that compassion is what's shown to these people. Thank you, Abdulah. That was very insightful. We wish you the very best in your future work in this field, and thanks again for coming on the radio with us today.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and I just sincerely hope that your listeners and the audience have been able to get a better insight into this debate that's ongoing. And I'd like to thank you all for allowing me this opportunity. And I think the more discussion we have on this topic, more sensible discussion, I think the better it is for our development of knowledge and also for the community as well.
Definitely. Thank you very much.
The Yfactor.